This is an additional learning material for the Retain game, focusing on tactile stimulation at birth. Current neonatal resuscitation guidelines state that babies who are breathing well and are crying are cared for skin to skin with their mothers and should not need interventions such as routine tactile stimulation. Not recommended, limited evidence. If there is ineffective breathing effort or apnea after birth, tactile stimulation may stimulate breathing. Tactile stimulation should be limited to drying an infant and rubbing the back and sole of the feet. There may be some benefit from repeated tactile stimulation in preterm babies during or after providing positive pressure ventilation, but this requires further studies, low certainty of evidence. The evidence is limited to several small studies, which reported that many newborn infants receive at least one episode within the first minute after birth. In response to stimulation, the limb movement followed by infant cry and facial grimace is the most observed sequence. Truncal stimulation, like drying, chest rub, or back rub, resulted in more crying and movements than flicking the foot. However, there was no direct relation between timing to first breath and stimulation. In general, many newborn infants receive at least one episode of stimulation, and around 1/3 of infants receive stimulation within the first minute after birth. The median time to first stimulation was roughly 134 seconds after birth. In up to 65% of newborns, they receive multiple techniques of stimulation. However, the recommended techniques alone are not often performed. Median duration in this paper was 17 seconds. Again, there is no direct relation between timing to first breath and stimulation. In term infants, they often receive tactile stimulation more than once. It starts later, lasts longer, and it is applied in more locations. However, no study has reported an effect on oxygen saturation or heart rate. In comparison, in preterm infants, tactile stimulation resulted in a significant increase in oxygen saturation, but no change in heart rate. This is a summary slide of currently available studies on tactile stimulation. And as you can see, the studies have often low numbers, except 2 studies with higher number of patients. And in summary, neonatal resuscitation guidelines recommend tactile stimulation only in newborn infants with ineffective breathing. Tactile stimulation should be limited to drying an infant and rubbing the back and soles of the feet. In majority of cases, there is no direct relation between timing to first breath and stimulation. Repetitive stimulation might result in improved breathing efforts, but further studies are needed. Retain games.